by the city of Roswell. You know, when I had you here in 2004, it's because you were not officially endorsed by the UFO Festival Committee, John. And we did it anyway, though, and it was big. And after a history of several years of producing good conferences with top-name researchers, when the city got involved in taking over or having a strategic role in planning the events, I was the person they brought on as a conference organizer because they knew I knew the names in the field, who was credible, and who would make us look stupid if we brought them in. So they gave me that responsibility. And that was the extent to where I was involved that you were here in 2007, as mainly as conference organizer. In the upcoming year, like I told you, I recently got married, and when they asked me in last August, do I want to repeat that role and be the conference organizer for 2008, I was like, no, I'm doing that biblical thing, take a year off as a newlywed, take a year off from the battle, bring cheer to your wife. And they understood. So I just laid low this whole year, and that's, you know, a lot of stuff happened here in 2008. Next year, I am also going to organize a conference as well, and it will probably be all Christian speakers.
Interesting.
And they'll be giving their views on this from a biblical perspective. I also asked them, or what did you say other than what are my activities here?
Well, actually, let me ask you this. What is the reaction? This is for the city, right? This is the conference for the city, or is this an additional one that you're doing with all Christians?
What I'll be doing in 2009 will be additional. It'll be back at the same place you were at in 2004 at Sallyport at the Best Western Inn there.
I see, okay.
And so I will not have an official role. Part of why I'm kind of important, though, or part of what was my resume to get me involved there was years ago I bought the domain, RoswellUFOFestival.com, because nobody else did.
That was smart.
And I also bought the domain RoswellUFOCrash.com. And I just checked it before coming on the program to make sure it's still true. If you Google Roswell UFO Crash, my site's the #1 match.
Wow, interesting.
And if you just Google Roswell UFO, it's #2. And Wikipedia is #1.
Wow.
But I've got a view on the Roswell crash that is man-made. It's kind of like Nick Redfern's Body Snatchers in the Desert thing. He and I were in communication by email several years ago when I first started writing that site. Between Nick Redfern and Mike Heiser's, you know, input, you know, I developed a view of the Roswell crash that, you know, anybody who's selling UFO stuff here in Roswell would not want to be publicized. But it's there anyway.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of a big deal there in Roswell, isn't it, that crash?
Right. I'm kind of the black sheep on that one. But it wasn't my views, either on religion or on the Roswell crash, that made the city, or that probably led them to bring me on as a organizer. It was simply my competence as a conference organizer. City employees have their regular day jobs. They don't do UFO research throughout the year.
Right.
You know, they're leading fundraisers and Keep Roswell Beautiful and things like that. They're not UFO researchers. So Dennis Balthaser and I were brought in as non-city employees. And again, this year, I kind of dropped out, laid low. A lot of stuff happened. Next year, 2009, I'll come back. But you made the point, I remember, that I do affirm credible UFO research.
Yes, and actually, we're going to have to take a break, but I do want you to complete that thought. We're talking to Guy Malone, the host of Live from Roswell, now syndicated on BVRN, the Black Vault Radio Network. It's also live every Friday night on the Paranormal Radio Network. Check Guy out online, livefromroswell.com or alienresistance.org. More with Guy Malone when we come back to the Black Vault Radio. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Black Vault Radio. We're finishing up with Guy Malone. If you missed those .coms earlier, they can all be summed up with an additional one, alienstranger.com. That's Guy's main portal for, as I'm getting tongue-tied here, Guy, it's been a long hour. That's your main portal for all your UFO-related websites, alienstranger.com. Now, Guy, it's interesting that all these all these alien encounter reports that you believe is more religious in nature. You're heavily involved with the UFO events in Roswell, New Mexico. Let me ask you quickly, because we have a few minutes left, what are your beliefs on UFOs? Do you think there's any truth to it being extraterrestrial in nature? And then I want to hear what's in the future for you.
I'm open to proof of that. I don't see it yet, but I don't claim to be a UFO researcher in the way that you, Peter Robbins, or Richard Dolan might be.
Mm-hmm.
And back to what you said about why the church isn't involved in this, you know that the world in general really doesn't even think UFOs are real.
Right.
Why should I bother thinking about it?
Yeah.
So it's an extra step for the church or Christian or pastor to say, well, first you have to convince me UFOs are real, and then we'll deal with whether abductions are happening, and then we'll deal with whether it's spiritual or not. That's why I've done my best to affirm work that you have done and others, is because we have to change public opinion first that this topic is even real or worthy of consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to say or ask the question, what does the Bible say about UFOs, until they believe UFOs are real, you know?
Mm-hmm. How much?
And I think there's a ton of man-made stuff going on that covers most of it. I just haven't seen the proof I need to actually think UFOs are visiting us from other planets yet.
Right. No, and that's an excellent point, because neither have I, and I don't 100% believe. And I think a lot of researchers out there have never seen anything to say.
To me, the greater burden is to make it an area of public inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
We know something is going on, and we want answers from the people who have more knowledge than we do. And we pay our taxes, and they're our servants, and they should be reporting to us what's going on, not keeping this information from us.
How close do you think we are to getting the public's interest in this, and even a religious recognition? Think we're close?
No, but we're closer than we were, 3, 4, 5 years ago. The newspapers are reporting this stuff a lot more nowadays,
mm-hmm.
With guys like Edgar Mitchell coming out making the statements he did. We're closer, but a lot of people with a lot of billions of dollars and the people who control the oil and the banks don't want this made as a matter of everyday conversation, and they don't want the accountability of having to answer for what they know on the topic.
All right.
One thing I'll... Oh, go ahead.
No. You go ahead and finish your thought.
I did want to mention, as I said earlier, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
If UFOs are real, there may be a way of pinning it back to all of history. And biblically, people have to step outside just a little bit. I do a lecture on this thing called the Book of Enoch, which does cite the past history right before the flood of the fallen angels' interaction with humankind. The Bible mentions the sexual sins of creating hybrid babies between angels and humans.
Mm-hmm.
But the Book of Enoch, which is quoted in the New Testament, even though it's not included in the canon, is as a historical document, is referenced by New Testament writers, and it goes into great detail about even the technology that these fallen angels were given mankind, and that's a big reason God got so mad at them.
Wow.
They gave us weapons of warfare, metallurgy, making swords and shields, and I do think that could be possibly what we're dealing with today. If UFOs must be or can be tied to fallen angels, there is a historical precedent for them giving us what we considered 6,000 years ago
mm-hmm.
as amazing advanced technology.
Wow.
And it could be happening again.
That's interesting. It's just been a fascinating hour, Guy. We are all out of time. We could definitely use another hour with you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Black Vault Radio and sharing your views and your beliefs. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing our radio programs live from Roswell on the Black Vault Radio Network as well.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time right here on BVRN, the Black Vault Radio Network. We'll see you then.